Okay, so. Bill's here. Steve McKesson.
I'm here.
Lee Brazier, as you all know, will not be joining. She has resigned from the committee. Now, think about that in a moment. Bob Marnell.
Present.
Yes. Do I need to read number 4? Do everybody online?
Only members of the staff. We do not have anybody from the public.
On. So we just did all that. Additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda. As always, we'll start with the staff. Do you have any?
None from staff.
None from staff. Do any committee members have any deletions, additions? or rearrangements of the agenda? All right, hearing none, the agenda stands. Public comment, we have no public attending, is that right?
No, sir.
We
Okay.
didn't receive any written comment.
Any written comments? No, none? Okay. All right, item 8. Approval of minutes. All of you received the minutes that Dawn and her crew prepared for us. Are there any suggested changes to the minutes? If not, I'm looking for a motion. Mig moves. Is there a second?
Awesome.
Steve seconds. So we can do this by acclamation, can't we?
Correct.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Item 9, general manager comments. He is not here. Dawn says he's trying to get back from crop sharing. Okay, we'll skip that. Item 10, engineering and CIP program manager comments. Chad, you got anything?
I do.
Okay,
All right. We brought to the committee, it's been a couple months now, but just want to keep the committee updated on the Morrow tank and the ongoing study we have going with our inclinometers to see its movement. So just to kind of recap on this, we have the 2 inclinometers that were installed. They're installed about 100 feet deep. This goes back to January 2023. We've been monitoring them for 9 months, and they are detecting movement. It is on one of them less than 1/4 of an inch, and at the second location less than 1/2 of an inch, but it's moving.
What was the time frame on that again?
9 months.
No.
9 months. This was a fill site, so the geotech is figuring it just was not compacted as well as it should have been. That was, I think Robert had that guess. We don't need to pay a consultant to tell us this, but we wanted to know how much is it actually moving. And so what we want to do now is keep this as an ongoing thing. This was set up for, I think, a 9 or a 12-month initial study. And so we're going to continue with this consultant to keep going and monitor for an additional 12 months. So they're going to keep giving us either monthly or quarterly reports on this, keep going out there and doing it. So you'll see that we're doing this through the as needed and on call sheet. So you'll see this to that consultant. So just wanted to keep the committee apprised to that. Right now, still no alarm. Operations continues to run it at 50%.
Yep.
And that's actually good that we keep doing the same so that the data stays the same. So, but we're definitely not exceeding the 50%. And then lastly, on that same subject, staff right now is looking into coordinating with a structural engineering firm. So we're going to reach out to a couple in San Diego just to kind of get the ball rolling with them. In the event we need to do something, what are some recommendations to do? Because it's been several years since that was evaluated.
what would be a troublesome reading
Oh,
of the movement?
yeah, that's a great question. The fact that it's
That's
moved,
why I asked it.
yeah, it's a good one. We don't have that dialed in yet. I think if in the next 9 months it continues to move at about this same, I think that would be troublesome. That it's not basically finding its hard place. If the numbers spike, we go up 1/2 of an inch in the next reading, that would be troublesome, but we don't have an exact number.
Any other comments or questions?
Got a couple more for you. I'm going to take a page from Robert's playbook today.
Okay.
There was some confusion at I believe it was the September board meeting where a consultant came in, pulled a speaker slip, and informed the board that the agreement on their agenda for the Beck Reservoir Solar Program was in full support. I cannot speak for that individual. There was no agreement before the board. There was no agreement being reviewed by legal counsel. I don't know if he thought he was at a different agency or if he was just trying to push the agenda through. But that firm was requesting that the district to just speak with them. And they approached us, sign a NDA with them and a non-compete, that even if we chose to not go forward with that, we couldn't work with any other firm to do so. We're not agreeing to either of those two terms. They know that we have correspondence going back. And so I informed them after the representative showed up at the last board meeting that unless these two issues have changed on your part, the district is done dealing with this. Have a good time. They specialize in floating covers. They just use Google Maps and they try and find these things, and this is a reservoir. But they flat out stated they cannot do this on the ground, which is what Beck is. So I just wanted to clarify that because I know it caused confusion at the board level, at the general manager's level, at every level. So I wanted to clear that up. And then the other thing I had, and I think Flint, we're going to probably talk about this on item number 16. But I was talking to Robert and to Tracy after the last engineering and operations committee, which was a while ago. And I know Robert's providing weekly or monthly leak updates. Weekly. What we have seen at the staff level, although the pipeline replacement program has been put on hold for 2 to 4 years, the pressure reducing stations that have been going in throughout the district and the other maintenance that's going on, we have seen a reduction in, I wouldn't know if it's the number of leaks. I'm going to defer to Robert on that, but the magnitude when they do leak. Sarah Ann is the perfect example. When we had the last leak in the Sarah Ann community, we damaged a home. We installed the pressure reducing in there. If there's additional leaks, these are now turning into mounds in the ground, much more manageable, easier to work on, less likely of injury, a lot less money in claims and such that. So I just wanted to, while we're not doing pipeline replacement, no secret, we're going to talk about that in more depth. The efforts that we are doing, we are seeing a positive response on those other efforts. So I just want to say that. That was all I have.
Any comments, questions for Chad? All right.
I wasn't aware we had shelved the pipeline replacement. What am I missing? Was that announced somewhere?
Well, I think the concern, which we will discuss in item 16, is that we have not undertaken any pipeline replacement projects since we did that very famous condition assessment and we came up with a ranking and a scoring system that set priorities. And for reasons that I'm not sure we need to ventilate today, there have not been any projects initiated. Now, we have done the pressure reduction, which is very important, but it's a Band-Aid. It does not make an 85-year-old pipeline happier. And so we'll talk more about that in item number 16, Robert. Okay,
Yeah.
Fair enough?
So do we have a handle on what the current water loss is?
Are we
Quantify
still,
that?
you think we're still holding at 7%?
All right. There we go.
Gosh, you would have thought that after I messed up that you would have,
Yeah,
got the
right.
program. But that's
So,
okay.
so yeah, we were looking at those numbers because it's that time of the year and 7% came up and we thought with the meters that we've been replacing so far that we found that are decoupled, that the number would be less. So this actually, that question segues into what I need to talk about. That's okay. We just roll
Yeah,
that in
Yeah,
operation.
rail into yours, yeah.
Ahmed and I went back and looked at the data and reanalyzed the list. The original list that we had, if you remember, is like 500 meters, but that was from last October.
Yeah.
So we looked at it again and we found more meters that looked like they had decoupled. So essentially you could see reads, you would look on the month, prior months, and you would see a read on that meter and then all of a sudden you see zero. So we found about 269 more meters
They're going to all the way to zero.
that go, yep, no reads collected. Yep. So we've doubled our efforts to keep on replacing these meters. We've ordered more parts to do what we got to do. But yeah, it's a challenge, but I think, are you ready to show? He's got a couple of good cases to show you what the difference is. So we're seeing the fruits of our labor on the meters that we've changed out so far, but it's not going to help us with our water loss this year because to take the story back, we saw the problem of October of last year. We started trying to figure out, we thought it was a data handling issue. Wasn't that. Then we started bench testing meters and we're like, there's something wrong with these meters. We sent them to Neptune. Then we had a meeting with Neptune and they said, you guys are using them design beyond their design capacity. So good luck. And then we started placing orders for the e-coders, which is the electronic register. So we just change out the register. And those orders started trickling in throughout this year. And then in August, we actually started hitting everything hard. But since August, we ran an additional list to say, because of water loss, something's not adding up here. So, and not only that, these guys, when they're out doing their normal, like testing backflows and they open up the test cocks and they look and they see the meter and it's starting to skip, those are ones that they're just running into. So now they're fixing those on the spot as well. So we're aware of it, we're on it, and we're addressing it as fast as we can. We'll get through it.
I'm wondering, it can't be that all of these meters are well past the design element. There must be some failures in these meters.
Yeah, they're decoupling. So they're basically coming apart on the inside. So the meters, like let's say a 1-inch Neptune's rated at 80 gallons per minute, and the person that's using that meter is running 120 through there. Some of the meters that we've installed, let's say 2 years ago, as part of What's Up, have already gone through their useful life cycle, which is about 1 million gallons. And these are like 1-inch meters in 2 years.
Really sounds like there's a design defect in these.
What's happening is on the customer side, they'll come out with a 1-inch pipe and then they'll increase to 4-inch or 2-inch. And that's what's pulling the meters apart. They flat out said they do not they will not rate those meters past 80 gallons a minute on the 1-inchers.
Okay, so that's part one. Part two is, now that you're accumulating all this data of these customers drawing more water than their grade is paying, let's say. For example, I have a 3/4, I'm allowed 50 units a month,
Yes,
and I'm assuming there's a number for each pipe diameter.
correct.
What are we formulating a policy to go back and start charging these people, at least for the maintenance, the extra $50 or $100 a month maintenance on the pipe system for what they're really drawing?
Actually, we had a meeting, myself, Tracy Ahmed, and Jake talking about that exact thing, and including going back and back charging for like we can go back 3 months and charge them. So if they had 0 reach for 3 months, we can go back and say, okay, your average for this time is this. So Tracy's starting to look at this master sheet that we have right now
Okay.
and look
good.
at the meters that we're changing out, and each one of them individually has to be contacted, sent a letter, and gone through this whole. So it's
But
a
hopefully you
process.
can recoup
Correct.
some of this lost revenue. Now,
Absolutely.
there isn't any thought of going back and trying to collect 10 or 20,000, the one-time fee. Because
There's nothing in our
kind
code
of
for
hard to
that.
get.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many are you up to now on this
We're
new set?
approaching, we're approaching 300 completed, and our total number 769 so far. Is that we found? So we've got a little over 400 to go.
So you're almost up to 10%.
Yeah.
Of the total number of meters
In the ground.
in the district.
8,000 ratepayers.
Yeah,
8,000 rate,
yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah.
Average.
8,500 meters and we got
Yeah,
10%.
yeah.
We're
We're
rapidly
approaching it.
approaching
We're getting
10%.
close, yeah.
When you look at the list you have, is there any way of projecting, you're seeing someone's hasn't failed yet, but he's really drawing a lot, and you can point to those and go, we better think about ordering some of
So
those?
that's a second thing that we're looking at is the usage on the meter. So let's say it's a 1-inch meter and they've already used 500,000 gallons of water or 800,000 gallons of water. And we know that those meters after 1 million gallons, they deteriorate, right? Because 1 million gallons, you should be able to go 10, 15 years on that meter. So we're looking when they're approaching 900 or 800,000 gallons, that's what our next set of data points. We're going to start looking at those to get those replaced before they decouple.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Once you get enough in, you can be proactive about
Correct.
the imminent failures.
Yes.
So the parts that you install to bring the meter back up to full capability, what on average is the cost per meter?
I'm gonna get back to you. I'm not gonna guess.
Okay.
You
I have
got,
a number in my head, but I don't want
Yeah.
to guess.
you got
That'll be in a minute.
115,000 divided by,
What's that?
It'll be in the
500.
minutes if you're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
there's two costs, right? There's the material cost, the 115,000 divided by 500-ish plus labor.
Right.
And then the lost revenue.
Well, I'd like to piggyback on what Robert was talking about, where he was talking about going back to the customers and collecting for what it costs to repair the meter. Are we also in a situation where this data is going to show us a substantial number of customers who monthly service charge is, if you're on a 1-inch meter, I don't know what that monthly charge is, but if they are exceeding the quantity of water for a 1-inch meter by a fairly significant amount, does that not imply that they should be on a different rate structure? And are we taking steps?
That's, we talked about that very thing, including upsizing the meter to a meter that can handle the flows that they're at. But there, again, there's nothing in our code for that right now. And how do we cover the costs? So it's one thing if you have a 1-inch meter and you redo the plumbing and put a 2-inch meter in there. But do you also upsize all the way back to the water main with a 2-inch pipe? And then who covers that cost to dig up the street and do all that? So it's, yes. I think we're at that one step at a time right now, is address these meters that we know are 0 reads and decoupled. Then start looking at concurrently, we're looking at the ones that are reaching the end of their useful life, even though they've only been in service a couple of years. And at the same time, billing is going back and saying, okay, we exchanged your meter and we're going to back charge you for the last 3 months because that's what our code allows us to do.
It sounds like there's a lot of money really involved here when you start doing this. It seems like this ought to be directed to be a high priority, just like the capital projects, and be managed and everything.
So
That's my 2 cents.
So Jake actually brought that up. He's all, should we bring Concord in to knock these out and have them knock them out in a month? The issue we have with it, is we need the meter readers to go in and actually do the exchange in the billing software. And it has to be very accurate when they do that. Concord doesn't have that ability. We don't want to give them that ability to get into our billing software and do that. So what we've been doing is we've been teaming up a meter reader with the construction guy. They go out, they exchange the meter reader can get on his laptop and start going to town while the construction guy's doing the work. I think not last week, either last week or the week before, they did 90 meters in 1 week. So they're moving pretty quick. This week they're going to slow down a little bit because they're actually the first week of the month they have to do meter reads, and then they do things called check bills.
Yeah.
So that all goes down the first week of the month.
So on that table at the bottom, it showed 2.13 or 2.3 acre feet. Is that the estimate of water that you're losing on some basis?
So this is a particular customer that we picked out. This customer has about 5 meters, and their top meter has a ridiculous amount of losses. So the loss that we've estimated is 319,742%, based on what their consumption was and their prior year consumption average, monthly average, and what their consumption is in the just the last quarter. So we compared those two. So here, this is a chart for, this is a chart for all five accounts basically. And as you can see here, this is where their consumption was fine. Then after the meter was replaced, then we started having 0 reads on almost all 5 meters. To give you a better view of what this looks like, just numbers. So we calculated all of their units on all of their meters based on the fiscal year. So this is fiscal year 20 all the way up to the last couple of months of fiscal year 24, of course. And you can see here that the usage has just been going down all the way approaching almost zero, 10,000 unit for
As read
for
by the
this-
meter.
as read by the meter. Yes, sir. So almost reaching, 10,000 units, or the year before, just 25,000 units, where their peak was maybe 83,000 units every fiscal year.
So just a quick point on this,
$5?
the construction supervisor and myself went out to this property. We drove the property because we're thinking, all right, they gotta be getting water from somewhere. And we're gonna find where they're stealing the water. There's water mains that go around 3 sides of his property if you squared it off. So we checked the hydrants to see if there's any tampering going on there. We know where the water lines are, so we're looking for any kind of trenches, anything that's gonna give something away. We looked at the meters, see if there's magnets on meters. And then we looked at the property thinking, okay, with that much reduction, maybe they got a grove and they just chopped it all down.
Yeah, they just,
That place is as green can be. They do have a well on site. So what we're gonna do with this customer is we're actually going with Badgers for this customer. Badger has a higher flow rate on their meters. There's a mix of 2-inch, 1-inch. And we're gonna we ordered Badgers, 5 Badger meters to put in here. And we also can put those on cellular so that we can log into the cloud and watch those meters and get better data off. This
time
is
of day, stuff like that.
exactly. So we'll see it when we change those meters out, the usage should go up. And then if it drops off, we'll be able to see on the cloud, okay, exactly what time of day that happened and whatever. There's also, it's called tampering, so it'll detect like a reverse flow or any kind of tampering conditions with the meter. So if you do set a magnet on there, it'll pick that up. So this one we're really focusing on, but it's just it's a testament to how much we're drilling down into this information. We found it last year and now we're really getting into the nuts and bolts of this, what's going on out there. I think last year they estimated it cost us about $1 million in lost revenue.
I just would like to throw in a suggestion. I completely understand what you're saying, Robert, about one step at a time and focusing on what's right in front of us. But given that we have issues around the technical issues around the meter, we have issues around specific property owners we are getting interesting experiences, let's say. We have questions about having that property owner pay for the replacement of the gizmo that his high usage has caused. And finally, the question of whether that person belongs in a different rate class, which would allow us to, over time, recover some money. It just strikes me that this is a problem, a situation which maybe we ought to be taking from the get-go a more global approach to how we're going to proceed. And if the board needs to pass a change or two to our administrative code that allows us to go back in time and back charge people that have been clearly using way beyond their capacity, that if I think I heard you say 3 months. I mean, this is something that other ratepayers are paying the price for this.
Yep.
And because our rates have to go up and the whole thing.
Right.
And I'm just strongly suggesting that you and Chad and Jake really take a more global view of this so that we can attack it on multiple fronts simultaneously. In the absence of a plan, we're just shooting baskets. And I know that you guys are working very hard to get your arms around the technical stuff of the meter and what do you do in this meter when he shows up and all of that. But there's more on the table here. And so that's my little piece. I know
Yeah,
if I was the
from
boss,
the-
I would be saying,
From the standpoint of, okay, they're blowing these meters. If they're blowing the meters, then they need to pay for it. But it needs to be painful enough so that they say, gee, I don't want to be on a 3/4 inch meter or a 1-inch meter. I want to be on a 1-inch or a 2-inch meter
Mhm.
because the pain of blowing the meter I'm currently at is gonna cost me more than what it costs if I'm on the next level, next size up. That, I mean, that's what we gotta come back with
And
to,
And in essence, there is a contract between the district and the property owner that if you get to pay for a 3/4 inch meter, then you should not be using more than 50 units a month on average. If you are using grossly beyond that, that person has technically violated the contract between the
Yeah.
district and the property owner.
yeah,
And so I just would encourage those of you that are working with Jake, whatever, to really embrace a more global strategic rather than the kind of tactical approach that we're taking now. Because I suspect the board would be, I'm just guessing, but I would suspect the board would be very open hearing the details of how much loss we're getting, how much difficulty is being caused by these ratepayers who are abusing and violating their contract with the district to make it painful, like Mig says, make it painful. And to put the word out in the newsletter and whatever else, that this is what happens if you do this. So that's my two.
Oh, it's a great idea. It's, yeah.
Yep.
Take all idea, we'll take all ideas. It's just.
Yeah.
The Badger meters that we're gonna land on this property have a higher flow rate than the Neptunes. So I think that might solve the issue of blowing up meters. At least in this case. But, yeah, this is
The more we dig, the more
It's-
we are finding
Yeah.
abuses of the system. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we're finding.
but
Yeah.
at least we're finding it,
Yeah,
right?
oh,
yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of we're sitting around
That's
it
good.
twiddling our thumbs.
Right.
Oh, I
Oh,
don't know
that's
what
good.
happened with the water. I mean,
yeah, no, yeah.
That,
So-
that's good.
One of the things that I wanted to show you here is we cherry pick these accounts. So these are accounts and you'll be able to see here in the last couple of months that their reads have been zeros. And then the highlighted and the different color of highlighting is just as the meter manufacturer. But this shows the months that we actually installed a new meter. And then you'll see the flow has gone back, or the consumption has gone back up. So based on that, like we're seeing, actually 60% more usage than what we had in the prior fiscal years. For instance, just the customer that my mouse is right above. So their proper use, prior fiscal year's monthly average consumption was 164 units. And then the last quarter alone was 442 units. So we have been seeing that when we do replace the meters with a more functional, capable meter of calculating the flows, we're seeing that we're getting back that consumption into our pockets again.
But are the replacements then have a robustness to last more than a couple of years as well?
so far, yes.
Mhm.
So, yeah, because the Neptunes, they're called Pro Coders, so it's the analog readout on there. We replace those with the E-coders. Those are holding up. And we're gonna try some of these. We've tried some Badgers, but they don't really count because they were up in Horse Creek. We needed meters for the new homes up there. And they were the fastest ones we could get. Neptune told us, yeah, we're 6 months out on meters. So we can't tell a developer we don't have meters. You can't, But this property, we're gonna drop these 5 Badgers on here and they should hold up.
Have you been able to isolate down if, sorry, is this the majority agricultural customers or is there residential in there as well?
Not necessarily residential. So like if we don't have issues in Rancho Viejo because those homes are tract homes, they're not burning through meters.
Yeah.
They basically can't. They don't have the ability to do it.
Well, unless somebody's for 1 month filling a pool or something. like that,
It's still when, yeah,
No.
it's not enough water.
No.
Yeah.
Not even
but-
close.
So
So it's the house with 2 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres. They're the ones that are getting us.
or the full blown agricultural.
Or
orchards.
100% ag, 10 acres with the 2-inch meter, something like that.
Mhm.
Now, what's interesting is we did do we ran a data by district on where we've seen reduced demands in
By
district
division,
by division.
by division, okay.
We saw reduction in Division 1. Yep. That's the first time. When did we run it last? Like 2 years ago?
Um,
3 years ago?
We ran it like about 3 years
Typical
ago, then we ran
politician.
it.
Take credit for it.
How many, what was,
We ran it a couple of years ago, but we just ran it just recently, like
yeah.
about a month
So
ago.
a couple years ago, we saw reductions in all the other divisions. This is the first time we saw a reduction in Division One. And part of that was because we've seen district wide, our numbers are down on our water sales.
Yeah.
So we're looking at everything, right? And
Yeah.
it just, Division One came up with a little bit less than it has been, so. Ag may be dropping off.
Sure.
Robert,
We didn't do it by customer, we just did it by division.
Robert, would you consider creating a test bed out there where you take a pump and you supply the same endless water around several kinds of these meters with the new fancy digital and the old analog, and do live tests so you know what's going to happen ahead of time?
We actually did that last January, December. That was we call it bench testing.
Mhm.
So we took Neptune meters of all different sizes. We have a bench out there. We put them on there. We videotaped it and we would watch the meter fail. Boom. And then we took different manufacturers. We took Badgers, I think Neptune's, Octaves, I think a Mueller meter we put on there. And we started figuring out where were they gonna decouple and fail at? And that's when we went back to Neptune. We say, hey, your meters are failing when we do this. And that's when they told us, well, they're only rated at X, Y, and Z. You can't put that much water through. And they didn't believe us that our customers were doing that.
Have you had a chance to do it with the new digital?
Yeah, we did
overlay?
those. Yep. And those held up. So because of our inlet pressure at 120 PSI, I think we got those 120. Would it max at 120 or 130 GPM?
I'd have to look back at the files, but I think even for those, we got like a trailer that we were able
Yeah.
to run some larger ones, and we got on that one, we got like 350 gallons per minute.
So that's how we knew the e-coders would hold up. And that's how we determined the Badgers were gonna hold up. Yeah,
Okay.
we've
That's
maxed
good.
them out. Yeah. It's been an interesting
Yes, it has.
year with these meters.
Yes, it has.
And it's, if you're in a place like Oceanside where you don't have as much ag, a 1-inch meter in Oceanside is gonna last 10 years. Cause you just don't have it. We have 1-inch meter here with the customer. Let's say they have 5 acres in a house, they're tearing that meter up.
Well, as we heard at the board meeting today in the presentation on the reserves, money is definitely a significant issue for the district right now. And whether it's reimbursement for replacements or whether it's getting people on an appropriate rate scale so that we are collecting across the board what we're supposed to be collecting. I think that, well, I just think that money is important and that we owe it to the ratepayers to do whatever we need to do to get things squared up. That's just my take. And I believe your board would support you in a very significant way if we were going to be taking what some might consider some draconian actions in order to get things on the level. People just can't cheat and get water at reduced rates when others are paying full boat. I mean, you just can't do that.
Agreed.
As a ratepayer.
Yeah.
Anything else, Robert?
Yeah, I got one more thing.
Okay, hit us.
Should be done by 6 or so, but we'll keep going. Okay.
So true.
So I send out weekly updates.
That was the easy one and
Yeah, that was the easy one. I send out weekly updates on what we got going on. A couple of board/committee members have asked me about, the amount of shutdowns that we do, the leaks that we have. And I just want to bring it out to everybody. The leaks that we have here are not abnormal for a water district.
Yeah.
I think it's surprising to people that don't see it every day, like the way we see it. So if I compare it to Oceanside where I used to work, we would have close to 100 service line leaks a year. So that's the copper pipe that goes to the meter, and maybe 20 main breaks a year. Here it's reversed. For whatever reason, it's just reversed, but the numbers are pretty close to being the same.
But
sometimes-
it does say that we have a higher level of incidence on our main line infrastructure than other districts, and that talks to me in loud language.
And sometimes it's the pipe rotting out. Sometimes it's the connection where the copper
Connection.
pipe goes
Yep.
in there. There's what's called a Lexon bushing. And that bushing will blow out. It just rots out. So that causes you to have to shut the main line down. So it's not, when we send out these shutdown notices, it's not always the main line is actually blown apart. It's maybe an appurtenance that's attached to the line that we've got to do something. with. But it happens. And there's actually times when I don't have time to notify you, so we'll have an emergency shutdown that'll come up. And I can't get that message out to you because they're already shutting down the line. They're already
Right.
going to work. So it's the ones that we know of going into the work week. And then as far as the work schedules go, I'm only put the major things on there. There's routine stuff that each crew does every single week. So like the sewer guys have to go to every one of their sewer stations, like every Monday they go check and see what's going on with them. Get the reads for the motor hours, the pump hours, they take all that stuff down. So hopefully it's helpful to everybody.
Oh,
Yeah, I wanted to comment. I really do appreciate since you started doing that 2 weeks ago or something like that, just to have a little bit more finger on the pulse of what's going on and to know if something's going on in your neighborhood. I make a point of stopping by and saying hi to people when I can, and that is helpful there as well.
And the guys appreciate it. And you can talk to them as much as you want. They love telling you what they do. Julie experienced that when we went for the tour.
I see your guys all the time over there on Tecolote Drive.
Yeah.
Visit with them regularly.
So we'll keep it going.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Let
And I
me
think
know
the
if
level
you-
of detail is appropriate as well.
Okay. Excellent.
no, the level of transparency that provides to the community. Because I put it on next door when, not every week, but it's 'cause sometimes I just don't have the time. But when I can put it on.
Right.
And I get a lot of heart shape, that's a thumbs up, saying thank you, keeping us, providing us the insight and stuff. So I think it's important for the district.
Mhm.
Uh,
PR.
Yeah.
Nice.
Agree. Anything else, Roberto? Okay. We might get done before 6. Okay. Item 12, committee member comments. Bob, you got anything?
I got two. One,
Okay.
they're still working on button antennas. They parked for 10 days on my property until I started putting trash cans in the way. They never asked, right? 10 feet from a sign that says no trespass. Just moaning about that. Okay. But we had the microplastics presentation. And I think it was Mr. Allspach. He was going to send information to Tom about the clearinghouse for all the information on microplastics so that we could do our own reading. And that never got back to us as far as I know. So if Tom has it, fine. If he doesn't, can somebody contact Allspach and get the info and then disseminate it?
I received an email yesterday at 3:38 PM with that information. Because he said it had to be finalized before he would send it. So he sent
Ah.
that to us. So if the committee wants it, I can forward this to Don. And Don could send it to the committee.
That's great.
Okay, I'm gonna do it right now before I forget.
You don't have to send it to me, Dawn. I'm not terribly interested in reading about something that we don't even know what the heck.
You're
It don't-
consuming?
It don't do nothing. I mean, that's basically what I'm seeing. So you can skip me. Okay, anything else, Bob?
That's it.
Okay, Steve, you got anything?
My comments were made already about Robert's emails.
Okay,
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah,
Meg,
I'm
nothing?
good right now.
Okay, we'll go item 13, board action updates. This is an item where we just get some feedback as to whether the board followed our recommendations on certain items or not. So Chad, you're usually the guy with that.
For the board updates.
Yeah.
Yes.
My recommendation is that everything that we recommended to the board move forward. on.
That is correct. There was 3 things on their consent calendar and 1 board action, and all were approved by the board. I can go through them, but it was 2 hours ago if you ask. Okay.
We want to get done by 6. We can prove Robert is not on it. That
For
would
sure.
just be great. Yeah. Okay, item 14. Thank you, Chad.
Yes.
Item 14, consider approval of change order number 2 with Valley CM for construction management and inspection services for the lift station number 1 project in the amount of $216,413, divisions 1 and 2. Chad, I think this is you.
This is mine.
Hmm.
So this is for, as it states in the title of the memo, this is for construction management and inspection services. Also under Valley CM's contract is the geotechnical support. And the contract we're obviously under direct contract with Fowler Construction. We have issued them multiple change orders, most of which have increased or extended rather the time for completion of the project. So in Valley CM's original scope and fee, it was for, get this right here. It was for 369 days, which was Fowler's original contract. And we're now at 538 working days. And these are all valid changes. The district has agreed to extend Fowler's contractual end date. And so with that, we need our consultant to continue to stay out there. But this was not anticipated at the time that they provided their scope and fee for the project. Couple more things. Some of the other stuff that has attributed to this is while working in Old River Road, the County of San Diego imposed restricted work hours. A lot went to some night shifts. And so because we are using third-party inspection, they're running multiple shifts out there as well. So all that, the geotech, all kinds of fun and great stuff. But staff's recommendation is option 1, which would approve the change order number 2 with Valley CM in the amount of $216,413 and extend their contract term through March 29th, 2024 and authorize the GM. All the other good stuff. Happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
This is Fowler is paid in a separate contract.
Correct. Fowler is the general contractor doing the work. Valley
and
CM is the consultant.
We've been doing scope increases to them and as time goes.
To
Fowler.
Fowler, yes. There's been
Okay.
several change orders which
So
have
this is just
extended
one part of the cost increase of the lift station.
the overall project.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah,
What-
this has nothing to do with JW Fowler's construction agreement and contract with the district.
What's the confidence level in the timeline and therefore the dollars for the extension?
Let me get the crystal ball out.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
usually foggy.
Uh-huh.
Originally the project was supposed to be done. Was this spring, 2023, was then extended to December of 2023. And we're now hearing March of 2024. So alls we can do every time we go out into a new section of the project and start excavating in the ground and finding new things, it's all we can, I mean, the confidence is high. Their baseline schedule is valid based on the information staff has to date to go with it. But yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question that you didn't ask, if there continues to be changes to JW Fowler's schedule and the project continues past this due date, yes, then we would need another
Back
change order.
again.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And that, yeah,
I mean, a lot of the work's completed at the lift station, like the underground stuff. The Old River Road stuff, I think it was wrapping up this week.
we're getting there. we're getting there.
That's getting close.
I was there a couple days ago and they definitely have the traffic held up.
Yeah.
They're doing some digging and some work out
Yep.
there.
Yeah. And
And
those are extremely limited work hours for us.
Rain for Rent over by the shopping center there where Cortez and Subway is. Rain for Rent's out there right now. They're drilling holes to start the dewatering process to do that 500 feet. of
400
pipe.
feet. Yep.
And then after that is lining the pipe underneath Highway 76.
We
In
can-
my eyes, March is probably a pretty good date. Pretty good. I've always said February, so.
When they did did up the original schedule
Mhm.
and so then now, was there a block of time established for rain days? And if it wasn't before, or if it was before, did we burn through them last year? And have we plussed up, considering with this extension that we're gonna go out into winter.
Yeah, their contract in Fowler's contract of days to complete the project, which I'm gonna go with Robert's advice. I don't know the exact number, so I'm not gonna say, but whatever we gave them working days to complete the
Mhm.
project, there was not a contingency of rain days to burn through in that. So each time there was a rain event which stopped the work, they were issued a rain day which extended the contract by that day. And if the rain, even if it wasn't raining the following day, but the area was flooded, whatever, they still couldn't
Mhm.
work, then additional days were also added.
Okay, so then,
There was no contingency of days.
okay, so then how many rain days did we give them over the past year? And then should we be looking at that as a factor in looking at the date that we are assessing right, or that we're looking at right now?
Because it includes full
Uh,
winter. right?
Yes, yes, exactly, because now we're extending out into the winter. And so not necessarily that we give them those rain days, we still operate the way we did before.
Okay.
But now we got a better perspective on what that end date might be.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't have
Yeah.
how many.
No, I'm
rain
not
days
asking for
but
right now. I'm just saying.
We can follow up with you.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sure.
And so that we get a handle on what the impact
We're,
really may be.
we're hoping, we need it to come on during the winter time. Cause
Yeah.
that's when we start doing the testing of the lift station.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when our high flows come and we want to utilize that equalization basin or that emergency overflow that we're calling an equalization basin.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's should go.
Because some of the stuff I've been reading, or seeing, the climatologists are saying
Oh,
this year could be just as wet as last year was, this winter.
El Nino,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
they're
So,
saying it's shifted south, so.
yeah. So
Okay. Made myself a note to
Yeah.
follow up on a number of rain days.
that'd be good.
I have a couple things. This particular contract with this particular entity was always a sore spot for me, Chad. I think you know that.
I do know that.
Basically, we have two guys that are essentially pocketing all of this money. $1.4 million to start with. So if you looked at a 2-year duration, each guy's putting 350,000 into his pocket because there's no support staff. Remember, these are the consultants with the super duper Star Wars software that no human hand or paper is required to deal with all the paperwork. It's all digital and whatever. So there's no support staff. That was in their contract. Now, what they're doing, I don't know, but that's what they said in their contract. So
Well, Flint, they also are having the geotech firm is under their contract as
I
well. So it's not
understand.
just those two
I'm
individuals.
gonna get that.
Okay.
I'm gonna get there. So, it's just like now they've got their hand out for some more money. They didn't have to work on the rain days because there was no inspection to be done. And yes, the contract has been extended. I get that. It's just kind of a function for me of how much is enough for them to make on this deal. And so when I look at the nature of the change order, it's 187, it's 160 something, 163,000 going to the two consultants. So that's 80,000 a guy for the two guys. And then the 53,000 for the geotech work. I see that. So, and you add those together with the 216. I get it. I noticed that the amount that is being recommended is exactly the same amount that the consultant asked for. Did we have any negotiation with them? Did we go through a process of good faith negotiations in an attempt to lower this? And I mean, clearly, just like when we negotiated with them that since only two of you are going to do this job when we let the contract in the first place, so you two guys are getting way above market for what you're doing. And so, but there was no negotiation. And so we had to swallow the contract as they shoved it to us. And I'm just asking, was there any negotiation around this?
Yep. So I have to answer one thing.
And I'm being pejorative. I know I am.
That's
I get
okay.
it. I get it.
When you stated earlier, though, that if there's a rain day, there was no inspection, and Robert can attest this, could not be farther from the truth. We work harder when it rains. our in-house senior inspector goes out, even if a job site's done, we are out there on site. So in this case, even if Fowler wasn't working, the inspector, Matt Luttrell, would be out there making sure that nothing is flooding, that nothing is sediments going into the road, whatever the case is. So they do work even if it is raining. There's also stuff that can be done, catching up on reports and stuff like that. So even when the contractor's not working, we behind the scenes, including the extension of staff, our consultants are working. To the second point of was this negotiated? Yes, this was. We have seen all of Layton, their invoices and what they're projecting, what they need so far and what they need going forward. So that's all. There's nothing to negotiate. Those numbers are what they are. And then with Valley, it's based on their per day rate for the two people for 169 extra days. So it wasn't negotiated, but it was absolutely vetted. I mean, you said it earlier. This has been a sore spot for you. If this was any other firm and they gave us that they're going to work 369 days and they're now projecting it based on the contractor schedule to go 500, any other firm would be requesting a change order. They're not going to work 169 extra days for the original cost. The project's going longer than it was ever anticipated to go. Would it be the same dollar amount? I have no idea.
God, I would hope it would not be higher.
Yeah.
Whew. High as your back, as my granddad would say. Okay, well, I've expressed my concern and I just hope we don't have any more of this. Are there any other comments or questions by the committee? Otherwise, we are being asked to take an action here. And that is to I didn't see the thingy bob, the calendar item. I think all that we were given are the contract change order and the Layton thing.
You don't have the draft agenda?
I don't have a
memo?
draft of the calendar item, but I'm assuming that we are being asked to approve item one,
Option one.
option one. Is that right?
Don, did we not get it to you?
I'm sitting there, I'm not sure.
Okay.
To approve change order number
Ah, I
2
s-
with Valley Construction Management in the amount of
Yeah, it's here.
16,436.
I see it.
Okay.
Just,
I'm like,
it's just,
wow, that would have been crazy if we all.
well,
knew
yeah,
that. Thanks for the panic attack, Clint.
it's, it apparently is just not in my little
Huh.
packet because
Okay.
I grabbed another packet and yes, here it is.
Okay.
So sorry about that. Sorry about
Yes, option one is what we're asking.
that. In fact, I read this on my phone. But I didn't get it. Okay. Okay.
I'm just curious where they are now working.
So we are in Old River Road.
Got
We are about to work near that shopping center, near the lift station, and we are still at the lift station.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is there? Yes. Staff is recommending option one, approve the change order in the amount of all that money and extend the contract term through March 29, 2024. Authorize the GM to execute the change order. And 3, to make a determination that this does not constitute a project as defined by CEQA. So is there somebody that wants to make a motion on this?
I move we approve option 1.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Bob moves and Steve seconds a motion to recommend to the board that it adopt option number 1. And we can do this by acclamation, I believe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor say no. And all those who abstain say abstain. So there. What? There are 3 yeses and 1 abstention. Bordering on a nay, but it's going to be an abstention. All right, item 15. Can't wait to see what's in the box. Consider award of a construction contract in some amount with somebody for the West Lilac, Rancho Amigos, and Dentro de Lomas Pump Stations Project, Division 1. And Chad, I guess that's you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And
You-
you warned us that this would happen, so I'm
Yeah,
it's
I
not
did.
surprised.
but even Don and Jake and I were talking the other day, is there a better way to do this? The memos were due before we opened the bid. So we're trying to come up with a better way, but we don't want to not bring this to you because this is scheduled to go to the December board meeting. So I got some great info for you. We did receive 3 bids. The bidders were Metro Builders and Engineers Group, Pacific Hydrotech Corporation, and SCW Contracting Corporation. The apparent low bidder on the project is Pacific Hydrotech Corporation with a bid of $5,657,000, $657,500,
What was the engineer's estimate?
4.3 million.
20% higher.
Yes.
Woo.
We're talking with a design engineer.
Woo.
SCW was the apparent second low. Interestingly enough, so as we're vetting all the different bids, there was a discrepancy in what they wrote. And then when we added everything up, they were off by $111,000. But their SCW's bid was $6,105,831. And Metro came in with the apparent highest bid of $6,738,935. So well above the engineer's estimate of 4.3, but a pretty good grouping, not a real outlier in this one. So in the draft board memo, which we have not yet sent to Dawn yet, it will say, with the board's recommendation of Pacific Hydrotech Corporation for $5,657,500. That'll be going to the board.
Is this basically a furnish and install contract?
I mean, with the pump stations, we're owner furnishing the pump stations. There's a lot of electrical, a lot of SDG&E work to get the power to the sites, and then digging up the
And
pipe.
all of that is in the scope of work of this bid.
That's correct. And then at the Dentro site,
And there's a structure to be built, right?
those are prefabricated.
Prefabs from EFI, right?
Correct.
Just-
And did we designate EFI as the supplier so that they all were in a common place?
They're
Correct.
already in construction.
Yep.
So it'll
So-
be like the Rainbow Heights one that we take everybody.
So they'll be delivered, and as soon as it's being offloaded by a crane, which the contractor will set up, that's when they'll do their inspection, and it is theirs from then on out until
Plug
we
and
take
play. And
until
it's
we accept it.
basically plug and play.
Yeah.
But it is customer furnished equipment. I mean, we bought the lift,
We bought all 3 pump stations.
right, so they're being handed that.
Yep.
And then they hook them up
They hook them up to
Hopefully,
the pipes,
and pipe wise
and then all the electrical work.
for $5 million.
And are they paying? Are we paying EFI directly or are they paying EFI? We're paying EFI directly. So this 5 million clams is just to do the plug and play.
Yes.
They have to provide electrical panels and.
Yes.
And
Yes.
where's
Well,
that
no-
kind of stuff right now? I mean, that was big time,
Long lead time.
long lead.
So what we did to try and alleviate that the best way we can, because when any of us managers are in discussions with any vendor and we use the word expedite, they just laugh us out of the room these days. So in an effort to expedite, we just said, you tell us what are your longest lead times that you know of right now and send us those submittals first. That's the order we want to receive. So those submittals were approved long ago. So all of that has either been ordered or is in fabrication.
Yeah.
But part of these pump stations was also to procure easements for SDG&E at their nearest power site and then run it to the pump station. So the contractors will do all that work. We will be out there inspecting it, but so will SDG&E have their own inspection.
Mhm.
So they gotta dig up the pipe, connect to the pipe. Obviously, all the electrical, there's gotta be some concrete work for slabs.
Concrete.
Dentro's a unique site. There's a lot of rock there. There could be some blasting involved with that pipe. Getting the EFI shelter for the Rancho Amigos from Camino del Rey to the site could be challenging.
It will be challenging.
There's some little bit of added cost in there. My estimate was 5.5 million. I thought I was gonna win the bet, but somebody else beat me. So Pacific Hydrotech, I worked with them at the Weiss plant. They did the chemical tank farm up there. If they have the same crew and the behind the scenes people, I think it's gonna work out good. But the owner was really involved, and easy to work with, and they're one of those contractors I'd be happy to work with again, if it's the same people, right? Because people move on and whatever. But I was happy to see the guy.
Do we have a financing problem?
We do not right now. Tracy was in here when we opened,
So we can afford the extra 1.x million.
correct?
Any other questions?
I just can't wrap my arms around without seeing something what's involved. I mean, electrical and piping, I just can't envision how that adds up to this amount of money. But I'm sure Robert.
Well, the locations are a challenge right off the bat, as I recall. The
The-
locations are definitely a challenge.
As Robert said, the potential, we know that there is rock at the Dentro site. We did a geotech study prior to going out to bid. Whether or not they can rip it, drill it, break it, we're gonna have to blast it. So that was in all of their bids. And then, yeah, I mean, the concrete slabs, they're giant.
Is this a lump
concrete
sum
slabs.
bid?
It is. Well, there are, the total
We
is,
have, do we
there's-
have a combination of unit price
There you
and
go,
lump
yeah.
sum items
We have both.
inside the bid?
yes.
And so if circumstances work to our favor, can we take advantage of that in any way by saving some money?
Well, there could be a deduct if something is not used. We also did put in there a clause that if there's basically a finish early clause. And there was an up to dollar amount to incentivize the contractors to finish early. So
So, and that's shared,
shared in what way?
finish early, you spend less money.
Exactly.
They don't get all of it.
No, and it would be capped at a certain amount, and Jake helped us with that
Got it.
language. I think you're gonna need a microphone.
We have a clause for finish early. What is the penalty for finishing late?
There are liquidated damages for every calendar day that they are late.
Okay, thank you.
Well, does anybody want to make a motion?
Doesn't sound like there's much of an option. So I will move that we recommend the option one, adopt the recommendation.
Steve moves. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mig seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, Bob
I don't
abstains.
feel like I know enough to approve this kind of money.
Fair enough. So we have 3 ayes and 1 abstention, Dawn. Okay. The item passes.
Okay. So I got a question, and that would be, what is the information that he needed in order to be able to make the vote?
Oh,
You know,
probably,
is it drawings? Is it
yeah,
the
maybe
contract?
group of drawings showing the work or PowerPoint showing what's involved at each site. I mean, considering we're furnishing the pump stations, just to interconnect that stuff just seems outrageous.
I can tell you from projects that I'm working up at Vandenberg that all kinds of equipment, power panels, you know, the conduit, cabling, it's all gone up 20, 25, 40% in some cases, some of the stuff where it's coming from. And you don't really have any control over that. You're just stuck looking at these changes. So.
Yeah, and the district, we're right now under the California bidding laws, we pay prevailing wage for all this work. So there's a huge adder just in labor,
Price of diesel,
everything.
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 So
Well, I assume their labor rates are kind of similar to the last guy, 180 for everybody.
We actually don't have to pay prevailing wage on that one. He's a consultant, he doesn't qualify.
Oh,
It's only
yeah.
to our general contractors.
Yeah.
Is it even more than?
Oh, it's much more. Yeah, prevailing wage much more.
The numbers are just blowing out.
I remember being a senior inspector and maybe I was even a supervisor, but being on a job site. And I remember getting the certified payroll report, and the person whose job was to sweep the gutter was making more money than I was just on prevailing wage.
Yeah.
Big money.
It isn't looking good. I mean, when you look at inflation, you know, it's getting pretty serious.
Yeah.
Uh, And they're doing a lot to obfuscate what true inflation is. You know, there's pulling numbers out in what used to be packaged into a consumer price index. If you take those kind of numbers, they don't look anything like what it used to be. They've taken a lot of things out, like fuel and whatnot, in order to try and keep that that CPI number so it looks reasonable in the increase it had. But when you add everything back in, those numbers are huge.
Yeah, there's a guy on the internet that shows real inflation, Shadow Stats or something like that, and it's like triple
Yeah,
what they're reporting.
yeah.
So, yeah, I know it's high because, Boeing used to charge over 250 an hour for me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the government willingly paid it.
Crazy.
Okay, should we go to item 16? Pipeline rehab and replacement planning updates. I asked for this to be put on the agenda. And I'm sorry that both Jake and Tracy are unable to be with us today. I did open this discussion at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting when we had it in mid-October. And that's when I reached out to Chad. I found out that there was a list of projects that had been transmitted. You gave me that list. My concern is that, and I guess, what is my objective? My objective here is to, on behalf of ratepayers that we represent, to suggest to the management team here that we have a conversation about what to do about our pipeline rehabilitation and replacement program. Over the past several years, we keep being told that there is no money for it, and yet millions of dollars have been found for a wide variety of projects. Some of which started off being characterized as the so-called ROI projects, and somehow they evolved into, we need these for detachment projects. And I remember being told that essentially we could do detachment with very little capital improvements at all. But now we're spending 15, 16, 18 million dollars, it looks like, just by adding up a small number of projects, including the one we just looked at. And yet our pipeline rehab and replacement program has just foundered. I don't think we have undertaken a single project of any substance to replace our aging infrastructure. And I remember that even when we talked about the rate increase that did not get followed up and implemented 5 years ago, that when we did that, part of what we talked about was that we were going to use the rate increase in part to fund pipeline replacement and rehab. And granted, we failed to implement the increase for 4 years, and we're playing catch-up football now. But I guess the concern that I'm bringing forward is that there's a lot that we could be doing. We could start maybe by identifying 1 or 2 projects that are of obvious importance based on problems that they are causing our operations department and therefore our customers, our ratepayers. and find a way to get those started, get a couple of them going. But in a bigger sense, what I really wanted to think about is if we were sincere about prosecuting this list of projects, and there are, I don't know, 20 of them there worth $21 million, $25 million, how would we do it? How would we do it? One, there's the two extremes. One is what I would call business as usual, which is that we maybe even hire an engineer, since we have no engineers in our engineering department. That's another subject. But there would be engineering to produce bid documents. And then we would go out to bid and we would have a contractor do the work. And at the other end of the spectrum, it is that we would do it in-house. Again, I think we'd probably need an engineer to draw up some kind of a flight plan for our in-house services to do this work. And then, of course, there's the hybrid approach, which is that we could do some projects by the bid and award process and some projects in-house and delineate how we do those or which ones are which. There may be discussions that I am not privy to about what is our plan. Do we have a plan? Are we sincere about resuscitating these projects and beginning to move on them? And if we are, what is that plan? And there's a money component to the plan. We're being told, again, that money is a problem, but we don't have a problem finding $1.2 million, which basically would have probably funded one or two of these little projects here. So somehow we seem to find money for the things that we want to do, and we do not find money for the things that I would argue we must do, that we need to do. And, there's always the prospect of long-term financing, 30-year bonds. We could raise $25 million. And I ran a calculator online. It would cost us $1.6 million a year to get $25 million in our pocket. And if we finance that over 30 years, that would be appropriate, since the infrastructure that we're looking to replace and rehabilitate would last well beyond the 30-year payoff period. So long bond financing is an option. I would hope that if we did do any kind of long-term financing, that we would use it to pay for stuff that benefits the ratepayer, rather than, for example, using it to pay for the detachment fee, which doesn't help the ratepayer. I mean, the ratepayer is going to get help because we detach, but I'm just thinking, if we have a willingness to raise money, let's spend it on something that benefits the district in a substantive and material way. And I just do not have at present a window into the thinking of management here at the district as to what our plan is for this. And this is a list of 20 water projects. It says on here that there is also a comprehensive sewer CIP valued at $16 million. So really, we're looking at 40 million bucks that we could spend to upgrade our existing facilities and bring them up to a level of service that would serve our customers, our ratepayers, for many, many, many years into the future. And so if there is a conversation going on, it would be helpful to me to hear what that conversation is. What are the innies and the outies that are being discussed? What are the options that are being discussed? Because I just cannot imagine feeling comfortable about allowing this list to continue to be unattended to. And it clearly has been unattended to for several years. That's all I got to say. And I would hope maybe that we can hear from you guys or board members. If you guys know of something that's going on or whatever, I would hope that maybe we could hear something about this list. That's,
when I asked for the list, part of it was to be able to talk to the ratepayers. Part of the reason I wanted the list is because the bottom line is there's water that's being lost You know, if a aging out pipe is failing, whether it's a major main break, or it's a pertinent that fails, you know, every one of those gallons of water that's lost is additional costs that the district has to pay for. And if there's lengths of pipe, well, you have to pay for, you know, the maintenance, et cetera, and trying to extend the life of that pipe. And if we're going back there that many times that it's made it to the top of the list, or the top 20, let's say, then, you know, that is just as high a priority at trying to stop that water loss as is trying to get those meters squared away and getting people to pony up with their, you know, what they're using. You know, and so I'm glad you know, brought up the subject. I think we need to be looking at what is that plan. And, you know, there may be some of those, because as I recall, there were some of those projects that are not extremely expensive.
Right.
And so to be able at the end of the year to say, okay, we had a top 20, we knocked off 2 of them, or we knocked off 3 of them, you know, if we can do that, and I don't know what the right number is, and I don't know what the right amount to allocate is. But if you're able to knock those 2 or 3 off, and it gives staff more time back because they're not spending that time on maintenance, then there's those synergies as you start getting the, you know, all the different pieces of the puzzle taken care of, and it gets, you know, I think everything starts running smoother. You know, we're buying less water that we're not getting paid back for. And that and people are paying what they're using. That all is going to accelerate our ability to be able to work through that list, and all the other projects that we got to do.
I don't want to speak for Robert. I think Robert and I are both chomping at the bit to attack every single project on that list. I think all staff here is. I told Flint when I met with him in person, while it's great to discuss at the engineering and operations committee, I feel this is better discussed at the budget and finance committee. The only reason that list has been deferred and is not being attended to at present moment is there is not the allocated funds to do so.
Well, I'm going to beg to differ. Do we have a plan for prosecuting this list?
Not until it's not shown in the 5-year CIP. There's no money shown to do those right now. So there is
So it's not even in the 5-year look ahead.
that is correct. If anyone can look at the 5-year plan, you will see that there are virtually no pipeline replacement projects in the current 5-year plan. The board approves each year one at a time, but we show the 5-year at each mid-year and at each fiscal year, and they are not shown. And that has nothing to do with the engineering department or not having an engineer in the department. Most of these already have plans drawn up and are bid ready. Robert and I and Isa and myself have already met on site at some of them, which ones could be done forced account, but that money has to come from somewhere and it is not currently allocated.
So Chad, taking you out of the hot seat, thanks for representing all of this.
Yeah.
What can we sitting here do to help?
Attend the budget and finance committee.
Well, no, I'm serious, right?
I am too.
Yeah.
We have to go to the accounting part of this. And as Flint says, if you look at anyone that attended today's board meeting, Tracy showed the projections of where those ending year-end balances are projected to be at.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I think it was Director Johnson asked, what was the language, a comfortable number or something like that. Those numbers could be lower. They don't have to be at, I don't remember the dollar amount exactly in those fiscal years that she had, but those dollar amounts could be lower if the board was comfortable with doing so. And we would the first thing we would do or could do is start working on these projects. But that's at the board level, and that starts at the budget and finance committee. Once we have money and I can put it into the program, we have to re-rank all of the projects. Those rankings are completely out of date right now. It was 2021-ish. So we re-rank them. For example, we just say, okay, the highest ranking project, the one that we want to do is Gopher Canyon. All right, let's go do it. We already have the plan. I mean, that was out to bid at one time.
I remember that.
And so from where Robert and I are sitting, this is not complicated at all. Finding the money is the complicated factor.
So we sitting here on the engineering committee, we can express concern of risk.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And put some effort, some thought behind and into the budget committee, et cetera, just by expressing,
Yes.
we represent engineering, expressing concern and risk.
Yeah. And we
It's
see,
time to go do
and
something.
we want at year end to be what it was, it averaging around 6.5 million. We want to recommend to the board that number be at 2.5 or 3 or whatever,
Or even 4.5.
whatever it
whatever,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. But that
Because
it's,
that becomes a policy decision.
yes,
For the board.
yes,
Which supersedes both this committee
Yes.
and the finance
Yes.
committee
yes.
to be comfortable in saying it would be wonderful to have reserves at a high level. But when we look at the opportunity cost of that money just sitting, being dead money in a reserve.
Yep.
As opposed to being put to work replacing badly needed infrastructure, that's a policy decision.
Absolutely.
Or play whack-a-mole with the reserve, right? So as things pop up.
I mean, if that all happened and the board set different policy, you're not going to see two bigger
So do you-
smiles on our face.
So if you were told $10 million is available, have at it. You have the corporate capability of immediately moving forward on some number of projects. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
And would we be doing them through the traditional bid and award, or would we be doing them with in-house forces?
It would be both.
Depends on the project.
It would be a
It
combination.
depends. So, couple things. Back to the finance and the reserve policy, there may be GASB, which is the agency that regulates our finances as a public agency, may have a minimum number of reserve
I would
dollars
expect
that
that.
we have to
Yeah.
have, right? So just something to keep in the back of your mind. When we laid the pipe up to the CAL FIRE camp as an experiment, that 8-inch pipe, we laid a couple thousand feet of it and we tracked our costs and we balanced that off of some other pipe jobs and we came in and we said, okay, we're a third less than what it costs contract to do that. That was 3 years ago.
I remember
We're
that.
talking about the increased costs that we're seeing
Right.
that got bid for these pump stations, right? Just to do the construction work, we're at least a third less than that. So in-house for us to do it, we need more people,
Right.
right? We can't do it. The guys that are out fixing leaks can't lay
Right.
pipe at the same time.
Right.
That's the
There's-
conversation I wanted to start.
We
Robert,
had-
is who and how are we going to decide how we would prosecute such a body of work? And if there are things that need to be done to prepare us, to give us the corporate capability to do it, what are those things and when are we prepared to get started doing them? And if it's hiring people for a construction business inside the district, that's one thing. Do you need project managers? Do we need project engineer here to do some stuff? I know that we experimented with one project, I believe, where all we did was basically take a map and draw a line where the pipe was supposed to go and we put it out to bid, didn't we?
No, that was the same Rainbow Heights where we asked the
Oh, yeah.
engineer, give us the bare bones that you'll stamp this at.
Yeah.
And we just basically, exactly, we want a pipeline from A to B. What do you need? He's like, I need topo and screw geotech. We're doing it ourselves, so we don't care about the geotech.
We did something very similar for the Wilt Road
So
pipeline.
it was,
We
so
stopped
it
at
was gonna
60.
be an in-house job.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
we did hire an engineer, just so you know. Big. He's an
But he don't work in the engineering department.
engineer.
That's just like saying we had an engineer because Tom was an engineer, but he don't work in the
No, no,
engineering
He's a
department.
different kind of engineer.
Jake's a registered civil.
Yeah, he's a registered civil with the
It's a little
PE.
bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'll tell you this, the bottom line is money.
It is.
We need money.
it is.
so
To
well,
do these things.
yeah, but so we've got a stale list.
Yep.
Okay. I guess what I would need to see if I walk through my thought processes, I'd want to see over the past 6 months, because you started telling us about all these fixes you're going out and doing. This is where that comes, why this came from. That ought to be, you ought to be able to use that and look at, okay, I'm doing all these fixes. Which ones are on the list with the pipes on the list? Are they starting to show up regularly? Now you've got rationale as to why there's certain pipe replacements that are a priority, maybe, you know, a lot different than where they were originally positioned before.
Could
Okay.
very well be.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what are the costs of those? Okay. And then the trade for me on the board would be taking into account, you know, the generally approved accounting principles and all the rest, GASP, everything else. How far down can we go butting up to that lower, I'll call it lower floor, you know, and what kind of funds are available? And then what kind of projects can we get done that have now gotten to the top of the list? And maybe it's not at the top of the list, but the budgets we've got can get one of the ones at the top of the top three. And then you can do 2 or 3 of the little ones, but they're still on the list.
Oh, yeah.
And you're making progress
Absolutely.
towards helping to decrease your water loss.
Yeah.
Which is,
And in
the
that
goal.
vein, how long do you think it would take under our existing scoring system to look at these or others and come up with a prioritized list of $25 million worth of work?
The engineering department takes the first crack at that. That takes a little bit of time. We then meet with operations, go through it. And then we have a formula that we would use to estimate what it would cost, price per foot and all that. I don't know, right? If we were given a green light, go, here, you have $10 million to update everything we have, and then it's now in Rike, so it's a lot easier than Excel. I'm thinking like within a month. I mean, a lot of those there are some that are just low lying fruit. We already have the plans at 100%. Maybe we haven't had a lot of breaks on them, but they did show up in the original condition assessment. So they were designated for a reason. We've been lucky that we haven't had a problem with it.
Because we did a lot of
if they're,
design
if they're
work
on
on
the,
the pump
if they're
program.
on the line,
ton of
if they're on the list,
They're
they
there.
could blow tomorrow.
That's it.
It
That's
could've
what
been
it
that We
is.
added PRV stations. We've been adding cathodic protection every time we dig up a line.
Right.
So we're doing all these extra things. But yeah, when you get the field guys to look at that list and they're gonna call BS.
Yeah.
Like that, we've never had a leak on there. Why
Yeah.
are we doing that?
And so-
So that
so
one gets you.
We
inked off,
we
right?
yeah, it was
Well,
right.
we have a bunch of projects here that are labeled PUP. So they were selected when we were doing PUP 1, PUP
Yep.
2, PUP 3,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And those were prioritized projects. They
Back
were
then.
picked because they were appropriate to do soon,
Yes.
pronto,
Yes.
and they have not been done.
Correct.
Correct. So I would think in that sense, if we pick PUPs, we probably wouldn't be shooting too far off
No.
the target.
We have it. We finalized the design for Sarah Ann, the water and sewer.
Mhm.
Yep.
Gopher Canyon's done. There's several of those have full design. We're ready. And we would determine, for example, operations force account is likely not going to go tackle the pipeline replacement in Gopher Canyon.
Well, it was suggested at the meeting that just ended, prior to that, we were getting this look and there's this plan to do this mid-year earlier than we had. And so that would be the appropriate time to inject this kind of planning and I'll call it diversion of funds if it makes more sense than some of what's being considered. So
Make sure Robert and I get an invite to your planning meeting.
Use your mic.
good. Yeah, you got the bite?
She should just keep it while she's sitting here.
Here's my thoughts. I hope you don't mind, but I just emailed Jake and Tracy about, I haven't seen this list, but for us to look at it, to consider what we need to do at the January meeting to review the budget, mid-year budget, And I believe that what I would like as a board member is for Chad and Robert's team to review it and to somewhat prioritize and update what that is. So the current board and the current GM and Tracy and this team can look at it. And like we talked about globally looking at things, this would be global. It wouldn't be just the budget and finance committee. It would be engineering and operations to have a rep there or more, also budget and finance, also the members of the board who are interested, the general manager, and look at where we are and then take a comprehensive step working together to come up with an action plan. Because I don't know what that list is. I just emailed Chad. I want to see what this list is and all, but I think we need to have future projects going that you just approved, but also there are things that need to be repaired. And so thank you very much. And I apologize. I do have a commitment, but thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for showing up.
Here's Mike.
Yeah.
I don't want to prolong this, but I have seen the list. Oh, I was on the board when this plan was back in the day when it was evolving. And it just occurs to me that the only reason that you don't have a roadmap yet is that there's two great big variables that we've been waiting on for 4 years. One is detachment and how that's going to affect the bottom line of the district, and what surplus funds may then accrue from water and sewer operations. And I looked at the September statement for this year, and we're in a bit of trouble already. We're in a bit of trouble because it could be that if El Nino hits, we're going to have a $10,000 acre feet year on a 12/7 budget. And that's a big difference. That's millions and millions of dollars that might otherwise have gone into the bottom line, which then gets swept into the capital fund. That's one issue. And the other issue, and between the two, between detachment, which we'll know more about on the 8th and coming up in a few days, and how the fiscal year is progressing in terms of meeting our sales goals, those two things are going to have an enormous impact. And I think that the one reliable thing I think that you can count on is that, Robert has been able to track what our expenses have been to repair all these pipelines that have been unattended. And we have a really, really good track record and an amount of data on what the additional cost of having those lines continually breaking is. So that's the piece that you got to know. Are you really going to save money by putting these new facilities in the ground? Of course you are. How much are you going to save? What is it going to, how much is that going to change our operations costs? So I think you're right on the cusp of having enough data to do this, maybe for the first time in several years. And then, the board, if you can meet the requirements of the state, which we were talking about earlier, the possibility exists as things stabilize here that you can finance a piece of this. And I think that's a very possible option. And again, because of the horizon so long, and say the horizon on a pipe's 50 years, yeah, you could pay that off even at the higher interest rates now. That's a potential thing. So I think everything's going to come together in about 2 weeks to give the finance people the capability to make an adequate projection.
Yeah.
That's my view.
Thanks, Bill. Are there any other comments on this?
Chad and Robert, what's the level of effort, if even necessary, on that list to call it, refresh it, modernize it? Is that a significant?
Well, when Julie said that,
Is it warranted?
so yeah, that I would need to have direction from the GM, direct me to do so. I'm trying to find the most eloquent way to say this. It takes substantial
It's not
Uh,
trivial, I can imagine.
effort to do so. And if there's no funding, it's all for nothing.
Correct. That's what I'm
So
asking.
when Julie said, could this be updated for that? I'm really hoping my boss does not tell me to do so until the board says, yeah, you have some money to go
Right,
do it.
so that it's worth.
Yeah.
The
But
low
it's a
cost,
chicken or the egg type of situation.
the low cost version of it is we take a look at the list and we have layers on our GIS system for
Yeah.
leaks, and we have institutional knowledge, and we look at it and we say, okay, here's the list. It had all these risk factors, risk of failure, how many times these lines broke, and they were categorized and rated. And then we validate it very quickly, say, yes, no, yes, no, yes,
Yeah.
no, when we go down.
Using
Then-
that institutional knowledge, I think is.
Then we
valuable.
take that
Mhm.
list and we say, how is this gonna help us move water from north to south in a more efficient way than we're moving it now?
Mhm.
Because post attachment, we need to be able to move water south, pump station.
Mhm.
So let's say there's a project out in the Gomez Creek area for a line that's never blown out, but it's on the top of that list. I don't know how it got on the top of that list. We're gonna pull that to the bottom. That doesn't benefit us at all anywhere,
Mhm.
right? So we can look at it, but to do what it needs to be done is to look at the data since the list was first created years ago, which I think was right when I started here, so maybe
It was before I started.
6 years ago,
Yep.
and take all the data since then, and you're almost starting all over again,
We gotta double the dollar amounts on each one of those then.
at least.
And that's
Okay,
just freshwater. Then there's the sewer
Then
side.
you've got all the wastewater CIP stuff, and there's the Sarah Ann, we bring that up because there was a lot of breaks there.
Mhm.
There was a opportunity for us to we were relocating the sewer force main into Sarah Ann and getting it out of this easement is only a 4-inch line. But at the same time, we talked engineering myself and we're like, let's rehab the water lines. If they're tearing up the street, let's do them both.
Yep.
Right. So that's a project we have.
Ready to go?
It's ready to go. We just need to bid that project. That's more than what our internal staff can do a sewer and water at the same time
Yeah.
on the street, right? But projects like that we've teamed up and we're like, yeah, this is viable. Let's get it done. So if you gave me the money, we could get a project like that out to bid.
in furtherance of all of this, I think Chad and Robert, I think it would be fair to say that our committee would like very much for Jake to authorize such work as is appropriate to allow us to take the next step in the planning process. This will be on the calendar for the finance committee for our November 14th, whatever that second Tuesday in November. It's already on the calendar for that meeting. And I just think it would be very helpful if you guys could convey to Jake what you heard here today and a sense that there is concern and that there is a desire, I think, from the committee for management to take actions to prioritize pipeline rehab and replacement, and let's get some fires burning. And, if the general manager is not prepared to support that, then the meeting at the finance committee will be meaningless. And then the only place really that the support can come to channel the general manager with that, at that point, would need to come from the board. But I am hoping that if Jake hears that there is substantial interest here and that we would really like to see some real movement on this, that he's got questions, I'll be happy to come sit with him and meet with him and talk through some stuff and if because otherwise we're going to waste our time at the finance committee meeting in November if our boss of bosses, our capo di capo, is not prepared to move along. Now, he has said to me rehab and replacement, that's music to my ears. I remember him saying that, so I am not in any way implying that he is opposed. So please convey to him that we are eager to get going and that we are willing to put our shoulders to the stone to help.
You have our support for sure.
And I am in a unique position that I can also talk about this at the finance committee. And I think, I will.
Okay.
Patty is on that committee. And I think Patty is generally supportive of replacement and repair. So. Thank you for being willing to convey and to hear us out. Thank you, Julie. Next item 17, as needed expenditures. I don't think I saw any yellow on this report, right?
We do not have any in September or October.
Right. There is no new activity here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 civil engineering contracts totaling $600,000, and we have not triggered anything. Okay. Any questions on the as needed reports? Fair enough. Then list of suggested agenda items for the next scheduled meeting. Well, I guess this is one, right? Hopefully.
So staff's recommendation was to cancel the December meeting because it's the day after the board meeting. And we won't have anything to bring to this committee that in between it. We'll have the January meeting and then the January board meeting. We don't have any items. Everything you saw is going to the December board meeting. Staff does not have any. The next stuff that we will have a batch of will be for January.
Yeah, I mean, of course, getting feedback on this subject we just discussed, but that it's too soon. One day.
I will talk to my boss.
Right.
Steve said feedback on this stuff. I said, I will be talking to my boss about that.
Yeah, but I mean, we
Well-
wouldn't, would we have enough to warrant a meeting in December? You probably can't answer that question. yet.
Yeah,
So-
between
Mhm.
now and the already approved time off request that we have, I don't think I could update that list by the December 6th meeting.
Well, and plus we have to balance, as we said, we don't want to put too much effort in that chicken and egg.
Yep.
Right.
So we
Right.
have to understand that.
gotta wait, and see what.
Right,
Well,
right, because we
would,
can't spin the wheels on this.
I would hesitate to cancel, if you talk to him and he says, well, I don't know, or whatever, well, then I want to have a board meeting and let's sit down and talk about it. I mean, a committee meeting. And if you don't know, or it's because he
Fine.
needs to talk to us and we need to express our feelings so he gets a better feel for
Sure.
where our thoughts are.
You don't, okay.
So that's why I would hesitate to cancel the.
But in
board
that
meeting.
case, it would be a minimal agenda,
Yeah, right.
which is
sure.
fine,
Yeah, right.
right?
And maybe that's the only subject that there is, and we talk about it and we, understand the direction.
So do we
Um,
defer that decision to cancel or not until we have
Yeah.
more information to
Right.
know?
Yeah, we usually, either Don or myself reaches out to the chairperson with the recommendation.
Right.
Right. Because it will also, yeah, okay. I'm gonna
There
go
won't
ahead
be-
and
There
put-
won't be anything else from any
Right.
department
It'll be a short
between now and January.
or very short, or no meeting.
Depends how long Robert's operations manager comments go for.
If I had a clicker for every word you said, I'd be a millionaire right now.
Okay,
It changed.
so I think what we're doing is we're not canceling yet the December meeting. It will be dependent upon your conversations with
Yep.
Jake. And I will get some preliminary indication at my finance committee
Probably,
meeting in
yeah.
mid-November.
Yep.
And we'll find out if this chicken is laying an egg or if it's dead,
Yep.
coyote's got it.
And we'll from an operations perspective, we'll take a look at that list.
Yeah.
And just see if we see anything that just jumping out at us that's.
I think you can't go wrong with anything that's
Yeah.
got PUP beside it because we already went through a process that said PUP that approved the PUP projects. You weren't here. It was led by a person who shall not be named.
Yeah.
Well,
But
But
What-
I revamped it and we did
Yeah, yeah,
it. We ranked it and I'm not trying to be dismissive or beat
No,
a dead
no.
horse. It's just
it would,
we,
it would be good to know which ones have designs and are ready to roll.
Let me see that. list.
I'm sure several of the pups do. I'm sure that.
Yeah.
And would it be safe to say also that all of those projects have been covered by the PEIR and that we're good to go from an environmental? As I recall, almost all of our pipeline projects were cleared, right?
I can't say with certainty that all, but
Yeah.
it would be
I think
next.
So,
You,
yeah.
you-
If
you know, and if you put together, because I mean, that isn't going to take a lot of work to move through to identify. These are the ones that all have designs for them and to go out to bid. These are all of these or some of these are under the programmatic umbrella. Just that could be enough of the information that if it gets out to us, then we don't have the meeting. Okay.
But
But
if that was sent out that way, just emailed to the committee and
yeah, right.
Or then more detailed follow-up in
in
January.
January.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
If I can
Great.
not have the meeting in December, I could do a little extra work between now and then to do that. Sure.
There was certainly no implied criticism of anybody on the staff about the fact that these projects have not been prosecuted. I understand completely that those decisions were made in another forum, in another way, and at another time. I get that.
Yeah. You can blame me.
But yeah,
Because I agreed to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we rolled through and
Right.
developed this list,
Right.
okay? And in a sense, I've gone along with the direction that we've had focus on and took the ball off the
Yeah.
eye off the ball,
Yeah,
so to speak,
nothing makes
and
me I guess just sad when the fiscal year, whatever year it is, and that's nope, you're gonna defer that out. You're gonna defer
Yeah,
that out.
yep.
We want to do it.
And now none of these are even on the 5-year list.
right.
That's
Right.
just very disturbing, very disturbing.
Yeah, and I would say that from the 50,000 level, 50,000 foot level, then whatever the plan that we're working towards is skewed, okay? And there needs to be balance to it, I would say. And like I said earlier, maybe it's one project, maybe it's two projects, maybe it's the three smallest projects that are on there that may only total $500,000 or, $1 million. But we ought to be nibbling away at it and,
We did too.
Well, I appreciate you guys hearing us out. Thank
Sure.
you, thank
Yeah.
you. And to quote the bard, Shakespeare, readiness is all, and that's
Have we
what I
adjourned?
wanted to do.
Adjourn?
No,
Did you ever,
Not yet.
never adjourn?
declare adjourn.
Shall we adjourn? Had enough?
yes.
QED,
Yeah.
Whitney dinner, it's 5:15.
Now that we're. I don't. You're